No.
Let me show you how to make an island in the ocean. There's a lot of humidity in the air. That means water in the sky. And so there's going to be a lot of haze. The further away the island is, the more buried in this light blue color it's going to be. So to create that color, we're going to make green, and green is blue and yellow. And you can also make a very muted green with black and yellow. So I'll probably use a combination of the three: black, yellow, blue, and then white to lighten it. So the first thing I'll do is put the blue and yellow. I don't want to put a lot on here because I have to lighten this a lot to be very similar to the sky color. So I'm going to start adding white. Now, like I said, the black and yellow make a very muted green, so I want to use black because distant colors are not very often bright colors. They're usually very muted by the atmosphere that's in between you and those colors. So you see I've added black, yellow, and blue and white to get this color. I'm going to keep adding white until it's just barely darker than my background. Let's just go. We'll just make this go up. Now, just like I made my clouds, I'm going to make this the same way. Because these could be trees, or they could be clusters of hundreds of trees. Maybe it's a giant island in the distance. I can make the hills as steep as I want to. This is about where I'm going to put the ocean right here, so I'm not going to go much lower than that. So we'll say that this is the beach coming down here. Like this. Now, if you really want it to look like it's distant and hazy, you need to add more white as it comes down. This is true with pretty much all mountains, hills, things that have the steep vertical incline to them. The haze will settle in the low spots. So you'll end up with more white down here. And it doesn't have to be 100% mixed either. I mean, maybe there's some clouds settling in that valley. So we make this lighter. Always remember that the paint dries darker. You can see on the very edges of this, it's already darker. Okay, so this is my furthest layer for the island that I'm making. So now it's time to make a closer layer. Every time I make it come closer, it's going to be darker and greener. So, black, yellow. See what an olive green this is? A very brown shade of green. So I can add blue to make it a truer green. Blue and yellow. And because vegetation and camera exposure and environment can change colors so much, it's really up to you, the artist, to decide what shade of green you want to use for this. There is no right shade of green. What's important is that it's greener than your background layer. And it's gradually becoming less and less similar to the sky color as it comes closer to you. Notice that my patterns are bigger now. I made bigger ones. These are smaller. I'm making these bigger because they're closer. Like this. Try not to make the exact same shape again. Make it different. This is just better for the composition of the picture. Okay, I'm going up here. Maybe I'll just make this come up all the way up and just blend it together. So right here is dividing into a valley, but here they come together and it's just one hill. You don't have to make distinct layers that are separated the whole way across the picture. You can make them separated here, but not separated here. And once again, I want to make it lighter as it comes down near the base of these hills. So I'll add more white. I'll do one more layer now. You can do 10 more layers if you want to. Black, blue, and yellow. I already have so much white on there, I can probably just mix it with what I already have on the canvas. There we go. As I start to do this, you can see the white beginning to mix with it. So if you're fast enough, you could just use the colors that you already have on there, but they do dry quickly. I try to get creative and do some unexpected things, like this real sharp valley in here, you know, not just an even hill. Maybe just one skinny tree sticking up, I don't know. Come up here, make it almost touching that one. Then you can even, there's no reason that you can't make your closest foreground layer blocking out the background. It doesn't have to be a continuous graduation from background to foreground. You can make the foreground come all the way up and block things too. Like here, and just make it come all the way up there. A hill in the front that's blocking the view. Once again, I have the short end of the brush at the top because it gives me a rounder edge. It's more round when I do that, and I like that for looking like more jungly trees, not pine trees. So how about we do some blending between the layers again? Right here. Blend it a little here, a little here. There, now it's not such distinct. I always see a lot of Asian artwork has that pattern where it's 1, 2, 3 layers, but I like to mix it up so that it looks like it's more continuous, just getting darker as it comes closer. You know what? Let's do an even closer one. This will be fun. Blue, black, that's probably too much black. Let's put it down here and come back to it. And yellow. Oh yeah, I like that deep green. That's nice. I constantly dip into the water to keep the brush wet. Now it's close enough here, I might want to get some more complex texture at the tops. Maybe it's close enough that you can see the leaves of trees. So now I'll rely on the texture of my brush to get a more detailed texture like the tops of trees. You have to experiment with this. You could try the brush at all different angles here. I'll flip it over the other way, see if that works better. I mean, it depends on the condition of the brush. Depends on the day of the week. What kind of texture it's going to leave. This, let's bring some here. Let's do more in here. And I can make this, I can just use the same foggy effect to make this have dimension by fading it into this background. And go like this, and it'll look like it's coming out of that distant hill. And I can also make this one, I'll just add white to this. I'm just putting white at the base of this little hill. So it instantly drops back behind this one and starts to meld with these here. So then it looks like it's curling around. You can give the landscape a little more interesting depth if you, in some places, meld those layers together. I have a very dark spot here. going to try to make this a little more similar to the rest in here. Once again, I'm going to add white to the base. Notice that I put it way down where it's not touching, and then I'll gradually blend it upward as I see fit. Because if I put it right on there, it's a little harder to undo that. This, I use a combination to blend quickly. I'll go down, 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 dragging the dark color into the light, and then across, across, across to blend it. Maybe I could do just a little bit more in the foreground there. Like, I think it looks cool that there's a little portion of the island coming down in the front here. Black, yellow, blue. A little more yellow in here. Now I don't want my foreground greens to be bluer than the background greens, just the opposite, because the blue sky is making the distant trees more blue. So if I make the foreground trees more blue, it's going to go against what you kind of naturally pick up on, as this is a very common way of perceiving depth on very distant things, is the amount of sky that is shading the color. So if it's more blue, it's going to look like, just like these clouds are bluer, they look further away than these, which have more of the purple in them, so they look closer. So I need to make sure that the foreground greens have more yellow, a little more of the yellow and black. Okay. So now I'll show you a trick for doing beach. You can just get the tiniest bit of red. Watch what I do. I'm going to open up my can of red right here. I don't think I need a palette. I've still got a lot of canvas here. Just put the excess down here. If I put a tiny bit of red into my green, beaches are not very red. The combination of red and green makes a great dirt color. So I'll just drag it along here. The red and the green make a nice shadow. And then just beneath the shadow, I add white to make the appearance of a distant beach. Don't worry about the bottom edge, because you can cover that. We're going to put ocean over. Come up in here, do the same thing. It's amazing how once you've set something in place, doing other similar things automatically looks like a continuation of it. It's all just setting the stage. I made that too high though. This is too high, so it's not looking as much like sand. But I'll just leave it. We'll say it's fog. Okay, we have some beach in here. Now beach, because it's just right under direct sunlight, typically in a picture is very close to pure white. When you're mixing colors for things, it's important to try to understand how dark or light the color should be, as well as what hue it should be. So I know that it's important to have a very light color for sand. So I'm just working on making this have enough white. So I pulled that white in there, so I left a little bit of shadow under this bush. Now this is very distant over here, very distant. So I don't need to go too elaborate with adding the red and then the red and then the white. I'll just try to with this big old brush, try to do some detail work. Bring it right up to the edge of this bush. When things are far away, a tiny bit of vertical distance equals a lot of horizontal distance, So the result of that is very straight lines, very straight horizontal lines on distant things. In the foreground, I might have more like this if a beach is coming toward me. But in the background, everything looks very horizontal. So I'll do this, I'll add a few white spots. Tiny bit goes a long way. There, that's a beach. The next step is going to be an ocean. So we'll just get started on the ocean. That'll be another day that we get into the details of it. But it's going to be darker than the beach. The beach is sunlit, very light. So I'm going to just mix whatever color I want for my water. If I want this to look real tropical, I'm going to use a lot of blue, maybe a little bit of yellow. So it has a little bit of a greenish hue to it. And if it looks just too brilliant, I might add a little bit of red to kill it, so that the red and yellow together are opposing. Orange is the opposite color to blue, so the result of adding orange to blue is a grayer color. When you mix opposites, you lose the brilliance of the color. Okay, I like that hue right there. So I can spread it by adding more water, or if there's not enough, I can just mix more. And for the distance, I'm going to make it a little bit lighter. I don't want to make it too light though. Water almost always appears darker than the sky. So I need to make sure that I have this light enough. Now notice that in this foreground, the edge, I'm not going to make perfectly horizontal. I'm going to stagger it like stairs. Higher here, lower here, maybe higher again here. Maybe higher like this. Disappearing into that gray fog. And then in here, this is more distant, so I'm going to make it more consistently horizontal. Let's do that. We'll make this beach coming out. I like the way that looks coming out far. I can always come back and do little highlights and touch-ups if I want to add bright spots of orange or change colors a little. I can do that. I just want to get this laid out right now. This is the nice thing about water-based paint, is that it quickly dries and gives you the opportunity to do additional layers of color. As this gets closer to me, it's going to be easier. I'm going to have a little bit deeper colors in it, a little bit deeper, because you can see into the depths of the water a little bit more at that angle. So I'm going to start adding some more blue where it gets closer, but not too much more. Let's cover this canvas. My colors were blue and yellow and red. I already have some red right here. Now, since adding red and yellow to blue has a graying effect, you can do the exact same thing with black. You can use different combinations of colors to arrive at the exact same outcome. Okay. But if I use black instead of red, I'll also need to use white and more of it, because I'm now adding gray instead of using the red and yellow to turn the blue into it. If that's too complicated, just forget it. Okay, let's put this on. I'm just trying to cover the canvas now with a good base for my ocean. These tropical coves can be quite colorful. You can have a lot of blue, green, turquoisey color in there, where that coral reef or whatever's under there is getting lit up by the sun and intensifying the already blue color of the water by shining light out of it. Let's put some more white. Some more white right here because I'm losing my soft blend. So you don't want to try too hard to make it exactly the same because there is a lot of variation in the colors at a natural beach anyway. One area will be a little more blue, one a little more green, a little more red, a little more yellow, a little darker, a little lighter.